afternoon, colleagues. Can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon once again. My name is Justice Mulafo from Parliament Communications. First of all, I would like to apologize for inviting you here Sunday afternoon. But again, thank you very much for making it. This is a press briefing by the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources and Energy, Mr. Sahlulele Luzipo. I'm going to allow him to speak to you. Thank you.
The Stillfontein gold mine, which is in Klerksdorp. And on Thursday, we visited the Witrantjies Village, where illegal mining on chrome is continuing unabated. And then yesterday, we were in Riverlea, here in Johannesburg. The oversight visit in the North West was a follow-up on the recommendation of the joint investigating oversight visit that was conducted last year by the Committee on Mineral Resources and Energy, Police, as well as Home Affairs. We are concerned that some of those recommendations have not yet been implemented, especially at the regional office in the Northwest. Those include the recommendation and commitments to demolish and rehabilitate the old shaft that has become a seedbed of criminal activities in the old Scot mine in Klerksdorp, as well as the need for a very close collaboration between the South African Police Service and the DMRE. However, we are a bit comforted by the fact that both the DMRE and the South African Police Service have made a commitment to collaborate in the fight against illegal mining, even at a national level. Yesterday, we received a briefing also from the DMRE, SAPS, and NPA, as well as the Department of Home Affairs, to highlight some matters in relation to illegal mining, which is now receiving the attention at the highest office of the country, following the Riverlea incident. This is a welcoming development because it implies that recommendations of the joint oversight visits by the committee together with the Committee of Police and Home Affairs are now being prioritized. The three committees conducted this investigative oversight on illegal mining in 5 provinces, mainly Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Gauteng, North West, as well as the Free State. And we've made a number of recommendations. The agenda, amongst those which were adopted unanimously by the National Assembly, is the urgent amendment of some pieces of legislation in response to the challenges of illegal mining. To mention just a few, is the MPRDA, as well as the Companies Act, Diamonds Act, hazardous substances. We therefore welcome the intervention that has been made in terms of some of these overarching legislation gaps through the process of initiating a general laws amendment bill. The issue of the budget of derelict and ownerless mine, the closure of derelict and ownerless mine, should be increased in order to address the pull factors. We welcome the DMR's commitment to prioritize the closing of old shaft and open holes in Riverlea before the end of September. However, we are concerned about the budget constraints that continue to be a challenge. The specialized police resources to target illegal mining at a local policing level, which was just one of those recommendations. We also looked at profiling illegal mining in terms of its role, the role players, and the ultimate beneficiaries, especially at what we call at a global and national level, which we therefore quite concerned about the fact that as long as we're not making a dent at the 5th level and the 4th level of our challenges. It is common cause, obviously, that a lot of revenue is lost in South Africa of about 7 billion rands annually due to illegal mining. Just in the year 2019, the total loss was almost 49 billion rands. And the industry, in the mining industry, has lost almost 2 billion rands. We have looked at quite a number of the forms that illegal mining takes, but the predominant one that we always have to focus on is what we call the zamazamas. We also understand that there are quite a number of other forms. The reason there is so much attention on the zamazamas is simply because there's a degree of high criminality, including, amongst others, issues of murder, rapes, and all other forms of bad behavior. So that is why we have then said we need to at least follow up on those commitments that were made. As a way forward in relation to this, the committee in this 4-day visit has suggested that in the meantime, what should be the way forward? One is that the committee believes that the DMRE in the immediate should consider illegal mining as a project and therefore identify a dedicated person whose role will be specifically to respond on all issues that relate to illegal mining challenges. Two, that its inspectors must work closely with their regional offices and they should consider rotating them. One of the reasons we say that is that at times when people are so used to each other, it becomes very difficult to identify whether they are affected or they might be part of the problem that you seek to resolve. We also stated that they should have an inspection plan and keep the data on both legal and illegal mining, including where there is double granting of licenses. The common experience that we found, especially in Witrantjies, was that there were up to 3 licenses, more than 3 licenses in some instances, where are granted to different individuals or different companies, but for the same product. And we say this is an issue also that is creating a problem. But also in the absence of a data that says how many illegal mining activities do you have and how many of these mining are legal, it also creates a problem even for the South African police to intervene. We also said that they must ensure that there is safety and security for inspectors when they carry out their function. The DMRE also has to improve on its licensing and also put mechanism in place to end double granting. It must also accelerate the process of small-scale and artisanal mining, especially in places like Witrantjies Village in the Northwest, as well as Bakersford in Limpopo, amongst others. Noting that there is an overarching strategy to deal with illegal mining, there should also be a costing exercise in order to determine the cost of resources required, both financial as well as personnel. We have also learned from Riverlea that once the holdings are closed off, that land must be utilized for formal use if there will be an effective deal. The point we are making is that in Riverlea, what we have discovered is that in as much as there has been closures that have taken place, but within the straight line, there is immediately another hole that is being around those pillars that the mine. So the suggestion is that the city of Johannesburg must assist in availing the land in order so that there can be value addition. For an example, consideration could be made if somebody is interested on the land to set up a solar plant which could be beneficial, or any other structure that will sit over the entire landscape in the area. But also in the short term, we said there is a need to also consider the barricading or putting up the fencing within that area. We also welcome the intervention by China, Africa in the Northwest, precious metals in the Northwest, for recommitting to open once they have done their feasibility study, to open the mine. We must also acknowledge that this initiative has successfully stopped. They have successfully stopped the illegal mining in the facility. The committee has therefore requested that at least we must get a progress report by the end of November in terms of this initiative. For the Stillfontein gold mine, we have requested that DMRE within its parameters and the legal requirements must demolish and flatten the old shaft structure whilst it's considering the processes with regards to the liquidation queries. It is clear that there is still no coordination between the DMRE Northwest Regional Office and the SAPS in the province. However, we welcome the commitment by DMRE to effect that they will be holding a stakeholder meeting next week. The meeting is expected to provide us with progress on how they have resolved the issues of coordination, including its outcomes. And therefore, we have requested that by the 30th of September, they must have submitted the report to the portfolio committee. We also requested that the department, through its entities, especially the SADPMR, must make sure that there is proper oversight, or there is proper oversight over the refineries and the smelters. We are saying that because we do have to close every area, including suspicion that gold might be being processed even in refineries that have been made legally. There are just two issues that I think it's important to share. One of the things we have said in the question of the legislation, harmonization of the legislation, is that there is a need to make sure that the law is not bled to such an extent that there will be a problem. One thing that we have discovered in Riverlea is that there is a problem with a company that is under liquidation, that is supposed to have rehabilitated the holdings there, and it has not been able to do so, and we suspect it is as a result of the conflict between the MPRDA and the Companies Act. We have therefore asked the regional office to submit in writing and convene the stakeholders in Riverlea, give them reasons why that company has not rehabilitated that hole. Two, if it is as a result of liquidation, what recourse does the department have, and who owns the mining right post-liquidation? So that is one issue. Lastly, we then said there is a need to make sure that we reverse the effects of what we call second-hand gold, because this is where also we think our problem starts, because gold, if it has been mixed with an old one or other issues, it becomes very difficult to determine its point of origin. So we said if it requires a legislation, we need to amend the legislation so that would make it difficult, the resale of gold-bearing materials as a second-hand gold. Thank you very much. I think I will leave it there and take any question if there are any.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I hope I'm audible. Yes, then this now presents an opportunity for questions.
Of those that are legal or illegal miners, which will obviously help you guys with your data. That's the first question. And the second part of that question around the legislation issue is, if you could just go back to how you are looking at breaking down the legislation issue. You spoke about legislation with regards to the Mining Act, with regards to the, I just want to quote you correctly here. You spoke about the MPRDA, the Companies Act, Mining Act, the Hazardous Substance Act, and obviously the General Laws Amendment Bill. Just explain to us how that, in the broader scheme of assisting with dealing with the overarching issue, how those acts will be able to remove the big issue overall, and not just sending in police. I mean, sending in police is a short-term plan. That's not a sustainable plan. How will the legislation become, how are you hoping the legislation will become a longer term assistance? Thank you very much.
Thabiso Goba from Eyewitness News. I don't know if this is a question. I don't know if you can just maybe expand on that second-hand gold point you made. I just want to understand what exactly do you mean, and how is it going to work? Thank you.
Okay, let me start with the difficult part. The one with regards to formalizing the illegal mining. I think the first thing is there are regulations and policy on small scale and artisanal mining. And sometimes there is a wrong perception that takes as if when you talk about artisanal and small scale mining, there will still be no compliance. Surely whatever law you make or policy you make, it will require that there must be some degree of compliance. I think that's the first thing that we must raise. I think also we must deal with this contradiction. Contradiction says if you arrest the Zamazamas, which is correct, but it's a contradiction when the answer says legalize Zamazamas. Because we are then told you are just arresting the low, it's just targeting the low-hanging fruit. Let's look at the Zamazamas and be specific, zoom to Zamazamas. I still have to experience, I might be wrong, I still have to experience someone who is 25 years and above as the Zamazamas. That is why we said one of the things we have to look very deeply is whether there is no case of child slavery in that industry. Most of them, I can assure you, most of them are below 20 and 19. Now the question is, how do you formalize that person? That is why we say they are at the base. They are at the base. That is the first problem you are going to have, is when we say young people, not even young, some of them, they are not even teenagers. It is the manner in which they are recruited to come to the mines that we have to deal with it. So you can legalize, you can formalize, but your first problem is that you are doing it for who? But in the same vein, one of the things we've said is that you need to accelerate. When we're in Riverlea, for instance, how do you formalize a residential area? So I do agree with some of the stakeholders we met yesterday that that's a residential area. If you look at the land itself, it is surrounded few meters from the houses. So it's either you make a choice, you end illegal mining in such areas. Obviously, where there is a possibility, and we've said this, where there is a possibility to allow mining to take place, that is possible. But linked to that, the problem again with illegal mining in the gold industry, like what we call, some will tell you, every house that you build, it must have insika. Now, when you've got pillars, every mining system, when you mine, you must leave pillars for the balance of the ground. And the fear that we have is that in most cases, including in Riverlea, they are not mining a product, they are mining the pillars that were left. So you then have to deal with the unintended consequences that are there. There is a rumor that says the reason the company that we're talking about has liquidated is simply because it was not making value for money for mining the pillars. So to them, any little 4 rands or 400 rands they make, it adds value. The last thing I think we must say here is that there are areas where we said, here you need to do artisanal and small-scale mining at a faster pace. Why we make that? If you go to Witrantjies in the Northwest, where they are mining chrome, we said the problem of the degradation there is that probably the department has not done enough to issue out licenses. The mere fact that traditional leaders are accused of issuing out licenses, it means there is a demand for investment. So I hope I've tried to clarify, because this notion that Zamazamas, you can formalize them. The problem is not Zamazamas, it's the market. As long as gold, which is the point I'm coming to on the question of the second-hand gold. In South Africa, it is allowed that in smelting or in refining gold, you can mix it in old gold product with a new one. If you are doing something for jewelry, you can still mix the gold. We are saying now, if you mine and you take out gold, it must be impossible to do it, because by the time it counts up, it counts out as a second-hand product. And we say, let's deal with first-hand product, so that if we discover you with an ounce of gold or whatever, we are able to say, by trace, this is where this is coming from. It's easy to trace because of the reefs that exist. So that is why we then say, let's end the sale of second-hand gold. And if we do it, it will be easy to trace where gold is coming from. So I can mix your gold from Free State when they do refining with the one that you are getting from Krugersdorp. And in that process, you wouldn't know where it originates from. And that is the point that we are talking about. In terms of the legislation, again, Riverlea is a very good example. The problem that you are having, I want to make two legislations that for me are required an urgent attention. If you look at the MPRDA as well as the Companies Act, the first problem that we suspect it happened here in Riverlea is that the company was granted a mining right. it started to perform its work, obviously put aside the rehabilitation. In the process, it gets liquidated. Now, remember the mining right is MPRDA, but liquidation doesn't fall under MPRDA, it falls under the Companies Act. There are two things then that happens. It's either that company is put under business rescue. If it is not under business rescue, it's taken straight to liquidation. The question now is, in between, who owns the company? Who owns the mining right? And that is why we said, the MRE go and explain, if it is automatic that post-liquidation, the buyer or the person who would have taken interest owns the mining right, it actually means that person is responsible for rehabilitation equally, using the same funds. But if it is not the case, it means the company no longer exists. The MRE must use what we call the financial provisions. It must then close it and must go and rehabilitate that area. So we say, as long as you have not harmonized these two legislation, in most cases, it's not that you don't have mining rights. It's illegal mining on an illegal operation. They will get a person who owns a mining right. I always make an example and say, the crisis that we are sitting with at Lily Mine is simple because since that mine was under business rescue, it has never been able to stand up and operate and have someone who can take final responsibility. So you need to have a finality on that mine, and then you will be able to hold somebody who must do rehabilitation and mining at the same, who must do the search and mining at the same time. That is why we say, if you have not harmonized these two legislation, we'll continue, because the moment, especially gold mine, the moment, even if it's within 6 months, is not actively operational, it is just an open invitation for zamazamas. So that is why we then say, deal with this thing. But also linked to this, that's the biggest problem, and I know people don't like to say this, the potential of our own formal people that have got mining rights, if we follow this route that I'm saying, in order to avoid tax and other things, is to go the illicit route. We have an experience here in Gauteng where the granting of a right is on surface, the other one is underground. And we said, for the first time we have seen an official operation taking out gold-bearing material on bags. We know that there's a works plan that you need to be granted. So we do also want to close the loopholes on how gold is circulating, because we've got mainly in the gold industry. I hope I've tried to clarify the need for the harmonization. We call it the harmonization of the legislation. Then other issues, which is why we've got the General Laws Amendment, is that when you look at the charges, for instance, when people are arrested, you find that in most cases it's for trespasses, it's for this and this. We are saying put now, I think it's NPA, if I'm not mistaken, when they were saying part of the problem is that when some of these people are arrested, they are taken to the magistrates because of when they taken to the magistrate, there are certain fines that the magistrate can't exceed, or certain sentences that the magistrates can't. But fortunately now, there is a process of fast-tracking the General Laws Amendment Bill, which is being done by the Department of Justice, so that all the gaps that exist in the illegal mining, including criminalization and prioritizing it as a high priority, as a priority crime, they will be then put in under the General Laws Amendment Bill.
department or whoever else, the police, etc., etc. The police can only police the situation. They can't deal with the underlying issues, which is what DMRE is supposed to do. What are you as a portfolio committee going to be doing to hold them accountable so that going forward there is no misunderstanding on what their role is and what their responsibilities are in terms of this situation? And I know you said now when you gave us a briefing that you're expecting that there should be feedback from all the stakeholders at the end of September. What feedback are you anticipating around the end of September? And as a portfolio committee, once you get that feedback, what's the next step forward in terms of that? Finally, I know that you've said that the Zama Zama issue is a criminality issue, but you're speaking as if it's individual. We know, we were told by the Zama Zamas themselves that it's cartels that are dealing with this. You said such an important phrase about low-hanging fruit. Are the police not just chasing their tails by chasing low-hanging fruit instead of dealing with the cartels that are bringing these illegal Zama Zamas into that space of abandoned mines and reselling that gold or buying that gold from them and reselling it at a higher price? Thank you very much.
Okay. I think if we look at what we call the way forward, I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of the department, but from where we are sitting, we are saying, which is why we said we are welcoming the overarching strategy that is multidisciplinary. Obviously, in our view, the sector where we are in must also take responsibility of leadership. We've got no doubt about that. But the point which we have, and which is why we invited all of them to assist the committee, because we are allowed to do so. We didn't invite, unfortunately, we couldn't, Treasury didn't see the importance of joining us and tell us, look, you can't ask for this because there's no such a thing. They narrowly looked at the accountability line. We know that the MRE accounts to us, but it's not everything about accounting. It is also about providing wisdom so that when decisions are taken, people are much more cleverer than they were. Now, on this issue of the DMRE, the first thing we want to move from a premise that it's not going to help if it is one department that thinks it can resolve these problems. It is nice now when we look at, because this is what has been our cry, that each department is doing its own thing when the actual problem is a chain. So we first said it is nice now that there is an overarching. They said this has got 4 pillars that they are working on, include from that task team. But we then said, the MRE, there are certain things that we expect you to do. For instance, that 30-day report, that the 30th of September, it's not from any other person, but it's from the MRE. Within 30th of September, we said we want to have that report sitting on the desk of the chairperson of the committee. What that report would say, the report must entail, 1, that yes, that stakeholders meeting has taken place, particularly with SAPS in the Northwest. 2, yes, our inspectors, we have identified how many sites are illegal sites, how many sites are legal sites, but most importantly, which sites have got double granting. So we then said, bring that, including the plans that you have going forward. So that is the second thing. We then say, they will have to convince also the portfolio committee if they feel it is too much. We then said, as long as you don't have what we'll call project management, a project manager, somebody whom, if today you say there's this problem, if that person says, let's take the example again of Mintech. Mintech is receiving 143 million to close holdings that will require almost 17 years to be closed. If you look at the Riverlea thing, and I'm saying, again, I can't say the department, it is wrong. The only thing I said, they must say they will close all those holdings, the existing holdings, by end of September. But I can assure you, with what we were there yesterday, there will be still almost equal of those holdings, because what they do, those zamazamas, if you close here and close here, they just draw a straight line. They know that here between this and this one, there will be a tunnel to go through. So it means, in fact, the last one we visited, it's clear that they are mining around it. So the point I'm saying is that at times it's not even closing those mines, it is how you do it, which is why we made that proposal that one saying, look beyond what is there. And therefore we expect now the MRE to say, look, it may not be a strong word to say it's a waste of resources, but this 143 million on its own can take us more than 17 years, because we might be closing one place. So what do? You then devise a strategy that reduces. We make an example. Almost towards the city of Johannesburg, one of the things where there's been illegal mining activity, the only way they did it was to create development. So they were going to build a parking lot in that area, which means you still to do excavation, to do everything and put a solid structure, because it's a big stretch of land. And we're saying those are the considerations they have to do. Instead of following one system, consider developmental opportunities that can come out of the worst situation, which is why we make that recommendation at Riverlea. So that level of accountability also includes considering issues beyond what you have. Now, on this thing of the zamazamas, no. I think it's a sad story. In the first place, you are correct, and we asked the police. I listened to one channel where they were interviewing the chief of police in Lesotho, and I was saying to them, if the chief of police in Lesotho says there is a team, or I don't know the name of that group, that grouping, that even at rallies it pays people, and it is alleged that is the money that is generated through zamazamas, then the chief there says, no one has approached me. But when you look deeper, here is an issue. That's why I said there is a first, there is the fifth level. The fifth level is that our goal, its ultimate destination, is not even in South Africa. Its ultimate destination is on 3 countries in the main. I won't mention their names. It actually means part of the work that we do in the long term is to close first the global market. The second one, which goes back, I don't think some of these people that we see, Zamazamas, exactly I said, I can even arrest 1,000 or 1,000,000 of them, they'll come back, because they are an easy thing to recruit. You need to close at the 3rd and 4th level of the chain. Once you do so, you are much closer. But we must also, that is why police have said, amongst other things they are working on, is to deal exactly with that level, including providing intelligence work. But I would say, I don't want to discourage them, but I think there is enough some work that police have done at that level. The only thing that, when you speak to them, that they shared with us was that at times you may think you have arrested the correct person, only to find out the person that you have arrested and the information that was given by a rival in order to take over the territory. So those are the challenges that they are faced with. But at the same time, we shouldn't run away from the fact that arresting that level, it may be too challenging. For one thing, they are not there on the scene when things are taking place. But at the same time, they are well off enough, because they generate interest, even from officials of the state, regardless of who they are. That is why, if you note here, we said, when you do your inspections, we expect the MRE to deploy inspectors to work directly with the regional offices, but rotate them. It's not a suspicion, just say rotate them and see whether my friends in Free State, when I'm shifted now, they will remember me when I'm in Limpopo. It might happen that they will forget about me and want to be friends with the new one. But also you may start to get information that we were not getting. So there are many interventions that we said they must be done in order to deal with the issue. So these zamazamas, yes, I still confess, they are unfortunately a low-hanging fruit. The truth of the matter, though, you can't ignore the extent of damage that is taking place. My last is that I don't think we have proven that when they fight and those people on surface are actual zamazamas. The zamazamas are the ones that are going underground. The turf wars are about bosses that control the zamazamas, who are also controlled somewhere else. So you have to deal with that second layer also, the ones that are responsible for the cartel. It's a fact. We have said we are living in a world of syndicates, especially in mining, whether it's for the trucks that are taking material or whatever. But the truth of the matter is that the issue of illegal mining, if we think it is only about what we are doing, it's a syndicate. I agree with you 100%. So when you deal with it, it is why we say police on their own, they will not succeed. The MRE on its own won't succeed. So no department, Home Affairs, there is no way it will succeed. I made an exercise. If somebody brings a 16 and a 14-year-old in South Africa, you cannot say that child is coming to work on the mines illegally. So those are some of the tactics, that strategies now that needs to be taken care of. Thank you very much. I'm sure we're done.
Yeah. No, thanks very much, colleagues. If there are no more questions, this will be the end of our briefing. Thank you so much.